But this is already going on with your computer. It's already going on with the digital cable box. It's already going on with all cell phones under federal law. Everything is a tracking grid.
Oh, wow. So even if I didn't agree to it, there's someone tracking the pages I'm going to anyway.
Yes, I appreciate your call. Now, about 10 years ago, separate companies from Arbitron that tracks radio, similar to Nielsen, a AM or FM receiver in a car or in your home or on a boat or wherever it is, doesn't just receive, it transmits at a much lower level. Part of the receiving is a micro-transmitting. And so they started putting in billboards all over the country that would, as cars drove by, be able to scan what frequency they were listening to. And if you've noticed with digital frequencies now in your car, it'll tell you what station you're listening to, even what song's on, because out over the carrier of the AM or FM, they're also sending out a data information stream that tells your AM, FM radio in your car, even the cheapest ones, exactly what you're doing. They're also moving towards people meters, like a Nielsen box, in the cars, and that's being phased in. It's already in most of the country. But this is just where they admit they're doing this and where you opt in. Google 4 years ago said they're using cameras and microphones on over 150 million computers in the U.S. to listen to everything you're doing in your house. And people thought when I was reading their own press release I was making that up. I had people at the local radio station where I was doing the Sunday show out of at the time would make jokes when I walked down the hall. Oh, they're watching me on the camera on my computer, that's up at the top of the screen. Oh, they're listening to me, Alex. Are they going to get me? I'd tell people 14 years ago that digital cable boxes were tracking everything you did because I had the manuals that were sent to me. In one case of the Atlantic Scientific Atlantic box. Now it's all admitted. And now, the schools are watching the children when they go home with their government-issued laptops. So this is a total control grid, and it's the same thing with all the new cell phones. So people are like, well, then why do you have a free iPhone app? Why do you have a cell phone? Well, I mean, we're using the Matrix to get people out of the Matrix. I mean, it'd be stupid if I just said I was going to be Amish and move out in the middle of nowhere and just scream from the top of a mountain. I'm in the grid telling you about the grid. But let's continue with phone calls. It was a really good question. Dalton in Detroit, you're on the air, Dalton.
Hey, Alex. Hey, I want to thank you for helping this country and changing my life. One quick statement. I think that the IRS plane crash with Mr. Stack was not an inside job, because I think if it was, the government would be still playing it up every single day.
Well, they have been playing it up on quite a few channels, but go ahead.
Second thing, how much validity do you lay in the heist with Alan Greenspan, Robert Rubin, Larry Summers over at Fort Knox? And
there's always stories, Dalton, that can't be confirmed that, Karl Rove was arrested in Europe. Not true. And then you learn the sources of media that always put out disinfo after a few times doing it. It's kind of like the hoax of the Amero coin that was just a, memorabilia made as a joke by a small coin manufacturer. And we said day one, here's who makes it. It's not real. People still don't know the truth, even though we've told them 100 times, probably more than 100 times. As for the IMF and World Bank and the Federal Reserve selling gold-plated tungsten that has a similar weight to gold, I have seen no evidence of that. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not true, but you would have heard countries and governments and corporations buying this gold screaming bloody murder. I appreciate your call. Kelly in Indiana, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex, thanks for taking my call. Two things. I love your delivery. I love the way you give the news, and I love how you're passionate about what you do. And I'd also just like to say that knowledge is power. You should learn how to garden and make sure you can filter your own water, get your own food, do what you got to do to live. Thanks, man.
I appreciate your call. It is important to become self-sufficient and at least not be completely dependent on the government. Everything the system is setting up, from the food production to water to energy to the way the cities are laid out, is to control you and literally turn the whole country and world into a prison. And the Pentagon admits that. We've played UN clips here on air where they're openly talking about it. Let's go ahead and talk to Tom in Texas. Tom, you're on the air.
Thank you. First-time caller. Been listening for a while. I guess I just have one question, Alex, and I'm not trying to be a rabble-rouser or anything, but I'm pretty well fed up at this point. When do we start to stop this? And I mean, seriously, I don't think that we're going to have legitimate elections while these people are in power in this country anymore. I don't think the electoral process is immune anymore. Everything is done electronically now, so we don't know who has access to the information when we go to our precinct and vote.
The government is building giant paramilitary armies against the people. I mean, there's no doubt we're in trouble, but we are having a lot of success in waking people up, and we're having victories at the state level. We're having victories in Congress. We're defeating their health care bill, their climate takeover bill, their carbon tax. We exposed their swine flu. You know, the Wall Street Journal says, you know, the swine flu that fizzled. Record numbers of people didn't take it, or the regular seasonal flu. And so we have a record low flu because the flu shot, as studies show, is giving people the flu. We're having so many victories. We're also having defeats. But people talk about physically stopping it. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I'm asking you that question, Tom. I mean, what do you physically do?
What do I physically do? I'm a former Marine. I've been out for quite some time, and we were taught to adapt and overcome. We adapt, and we need to start adapting now in a physical sense, not just going on the internet or listening to shortwave or things of that nature. You need to physically adapt. When you
Tom, stay there.
Adapt,
Tom, we got a break. Stay there. Don't hang up. Let's come back and talk about versus just listening to the radio or surfing the internet or passing videos around. What do we do physically that doesn't hurt anybody? And so I've got some ideas on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.